So the speech I chose and am analyzing is a TED Talk my friend gave a couple years ago at his school, Mountain View High School. It's a TED Talk X, and although he wasn't really given credentials to speak, he was given the opportunity. His name is Kieran Ward, and the name for his speech was called Pressing the A Button. So his speech wasn't really formatted like the speeches we do now. It's not informative or a persuasive or impromptu speech really, and doesn't really have a roadmap of where he is going. So that's would be something he had to work on. But his attention grabber was that he had a lot of visual aids and connected those visual aids with his own personal story or anecdotes. And through his personal story, he was able to make a speech that not only made people laugh and involve his own personal anecdote, but he was able to connect his personal anecdotes to an overall theme that everyone should connect to. So that was his real speech, just being able to use his anecdotes, his humor, and connect it to a real life lesson. Like his introduction, which had no real roadmap of what he was going to talk about, his body points were also not really that existent either. But what was interesting was that he had no qualms in talking about his personal story, his failures and struggles, and I think that's really admirable. And he used his own personal story to create a life message, like I said in the thesis of my speech. What's also interesting was that even though his story is really relatable, for a lot of people, it can be something other people can't relate to because he was a very unique kid. But whether or not people related to his story, he used humor to make people connected. And that leads to the concepts we learned in our book, in that his speech wasn't very long, it was really short. He got the audience interacted with him by making him laugh. He had social cohesion. He used dynamicism, and he has a really enthusiastic, a lot of energy, and straight to the point. Because he used personal anecdotes, it was very trustworthy. And because of his visuals, there's a lot of visualization. Like I said earlier, his speech wasn't really informative or persuasive. It was kind of like him telling a personal story. And and that's kind of how it's different from what we're learning in class right now. So far, we've went through impromptu, persuasive, and informative speeches, and his speech wasn't really like that. But what's similar is that he's still learning, he's still going out of his shell, and constantly improving on his public speaking skills, which is kind of like what we're doing. Some of us might be better than others in public speaking, but at the same time, we're all in the same boat and learning to do better. So, in conclusion, what he needs to work on is basically having structure in his speeches. His speech was a little bit random. No one really knew where he was going with it until around the middle, which was basically how his personal story became a life lesson, but no one really knew where he was going with it. There was no real roadmap. And I think if he would work on that, his speech would have been a lot better.